And welcome to another podcast with the Financial Puzzle Playbook with your host, Jim Sumpter. I'm RJ Malik, producer of the podcast. And Jim, you're continuing your discussion with a previous guest. So why don't you reintroduce her and tell us what you're going to be talking about on this podcast?
Okay, RJ, great to see you again. Amanda, welcome back. You got to do this once, and now we're going to do it again. We're going to continue this discussion on the puzzle piece of cash flow about saving for specific goals. Okay, so in the last episode, we talked a little bit about wedding planning. We're going to touch on some different types of events in this episode. But why don't you remind us real quickly your background? I know today you work with advisors and advisor events and things like that, but you haven't always done that. So remind us sort of your background and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so about 15 years ago, I got into the event world and really got my start with wedding planning and venue management and really fell in love with it. It was great for 4 or 5 years, and life kind of took me into the corporate sector, but I really have a soft spot for weddings.
Okay. Right. So we touched on weddings and engagement parties, rehearsal dinners in the last episode. This episode, I want to jump to some other events that are, I think, becoming more and more popular as far as making a bigger, we'll use the word production. And that's around milestone anniversaries, milestone birthdays. We're going to talk about retirement parties, baby showers, hosting holiday parties, this whole gender reveal concept. Is that here to stay? Is it going away? Things like that. So that's what we're going to touch on as we get into. Let's start with these milestone events, okay? A milestone anniversary or a milestone birthday. Put a number to it. What is considered a milestone event?
Yeah, so I would say any of those, if you have a 40-year wedding anniversary, a 50-year wedding anniversary, those are really big milestones. If your grandmother is turning 100 years old, that is a milestone birthday.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. What about when you turn 50? Are we seeing 50-year-old birthday parties?
Absolutely. Yeah, they
Okay.
may be a little bit smaller, but it absolutely is a milestone.
No, I've been to a couple and they weren't small. So it was.
Well, there you go.
These particular people, maybe they were just so excited they made it to
Maybe.
50. I don't know. It was. So in the last episode, we talked about we got engaged. We know we have this wedding coming up. It was more of a year-long process or a 2-year process. There's all these steps along the way. Is that the same type thing? Let's say we have a 50-year wedding anniversary or age 75 birthday or an age 90 or 100 birthday. Is it a long process like a wedding or is it different?
It's definitely not as long.
Okay.
It's definitely more manageable time-wise. We're looking at a 3, 4, 6 month out kind of thing. The times where we see that timeline of planning a little bit extended is if we have multiple family members or relatives or friends that are out of state, need to travel, and we're looking at different components of the event.
Okay, so are you seeing that where we're seeing people travel in for this?
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
so when they do that, are we doing room blocks? Are we doing we talked about the transportation in the last episode? Are we seeing those sorts of things?
Absolutely. So similar to weddings, we're looking at hotel room blocks. We're trying to get the best group rate for your group.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at transportation, things like that.
Okay, and that's where you as an event planner can come in and help with all of that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
So milestone anniversary. Let's start with that one, and let's talk about specifics. Okay, we're day of, and we know what a wedding reception is like. What's a milestone anniversary? What's the quote unquote party like?
Yeah, I would say they're all similar in the fact that you want some type of grounding entertainment, right?
Okay.
So I kind of call it like your focal point. Do you want a band? Do you want a DJ? What do you want your guests to be doing? Is it that they are up and dancing? Do you want a seated dinner? What is that vision? What do you want to see? But what is the focal point?
Okay, so it's really the same type of concept as a wedding.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about because I love music. So let's talk about some of the music. So if you have a 50-year, and I would do the math, but it's going to go back. I used to say, well, the 80s was only 20 years ago.
Oh my gosh, I know.
And
wait a minute.
And I still think of the 80s as only 20 years
Me
ago when I realized that it was 40 years ago.
I don't like that.
It's very, very
But
different for me.
I don't love that.
So really and truly, if you're about to have a 50-year wedding anniversary, that means you got married in the 70s.
Yep.
Okay.
That's right.
So are we seeing, when we're picking music, when we're picking a DJ, when we're picking a band, are we seeing that music genre in general be something that the guest of honor would enjoy, or is it all over the place, or what are we seeing?
I think it's a bit of both. So I think it's always important to start out at least with what the guest of honor would enjoy, right? And then I think it's fun to kind of feel out the crowd. And that's something that working with vendors is very important. If I know that I'm working with a vendor who is very receptive to instruction, or maybe switching it up, or saying, hey, like, feel out the crowd and see how this plays. You want to work with vendors who are very flexible in that and can read the room. But yeah, I think it's important to start out with what the guest of honor would want to hear first. Yeah.
So you say vendor. What all could a vendor be?
Yeah. So your vendors are your photographers, your caterers, your band, your DJ. Anybody who is providing a service would be a vendor.
Okay, because we're going to focus on food and visuals. Okay, because I like the food part, and I know the visuals are important. So let's start with the food. Okay. Generally, a wedding reception, we all know the different types of food. I talked about one of my favorites, the mashed potato bar.
I agreed.
And so is the food generally a buffet style, kind of like a wedding reception? Is it more of a sit down? Does it totally depend? What are we seeing?
It does depend. Sometimes you get an event, a milestone event that's a little bit more upscale, right? Where we're doing more of a formal setting. We've got a sit down dinner. There might be a band afterwards where there's some dancing. So starting off with food, you might do some past hors d'oeuvres, and then dinner is seated, right? But a lot of times I think people love a more casual reception style, and in which case you'll still start out with some past hors d'oeuvres. I'm a big fan of, if someone has something to drink and something to eat, they're very happy. Okay. So I think to be a good host, you want to make sure that everyone is well taken care of and having a good time. Okay. So starting out with past apps, heavy hors d'oeuvres, and then going into food. Okay.
And again, that's something that you as an event planner, you're going to kind of talk to people about. Yes. These are some things to consider.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Let's talk about the photography. So in the last episode, Jim was surprised about something, but we talked about the photographer, the videographer, and then this social media coordinator.
Yes.
Okay. Is that the same with these types of events?
I would say we're not seeing as much of that here because generally, if we're talking about milestones, you're looking at an older demographic where they probably do just about Facebook, and that may be about it. So we're not really seeing that yet. Yeah.
And they do that so that they can see the grandchildren or the great grandchildren or whatever.
Yes.
Okay. But if the granddaughter or the great granddaughter is getting involved with this, you may see social media because it's a very important thing that everyone begins to see here. Okay, let's jump to an event that is more in that younger demographic, and that's baby showers.
Yes.
Okay. Is this as big as it has always been? What trends are you seeing, and are we seeing any changes?
So baby showers sometimes are, I wouldn't say nearly as big as a wedding, but you still sometimes have that production where you've got linens and florals, and you may have a decor element that has a photo op, things like that. But they are definitely big. Yeah, it's definitely where you're looking at the venue. You still want a photographer. You may want to have some of those marketing, branding things that I like to call, where you've got a monogram, whether it's, the baby's initials or the family initials, things like that.
Okay. So while we're talking about the whole baby idea, there's this trend of gender reveals.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that here to stay, or is it changing? What's going on with those?
We are seeing a huge decline in gender reveals because
wow.
I think that they just got really cringy.
Okay.
And really, really outlandish. And I feel like people were getting hurt and just doing some really crazy things. So I do see where a lot of people are wanting a more intimate experience. Okay,
so you're saying more immediate family type thing?
Or even just the couple.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Are you seeing a trend? Because I kind of tend to see this, a trend towards I don't want to know.
I really don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I don't know, a handful of people that I've known that have been expecting, more than half of them have been like, we just really don't want to know.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of because that's the way it used to be.
Right. That's right.
Before this whole, I know when my kids were being born and all that, I know with Cassidy, we had this 4D picture that we could get.
Yeah.
That literally, if you look at that picture and then you look at her baby picture, it is clearly the same child.
That's so sweet.
And so, now with Carson, we didn't have that.
Right.
Because the technology was not there.
Yeah.
When I was born, you didn't have gender reveal because you didn't know.
That's right. Yeah, there wasn't an option.
There wasn't an option. Yeah. It was like, hey, congratulations, you have a bouncing baby,
right.
whatever, And so it's interesting how the times have changed, the venues have changed, the events have changed. But I think it's I agree that I think some of these gender reveals are nuts. My favorites are the ones where the younger toddler comes up and has the scissors and they're supposed to punch the balloon, and instead they cut the string and it takes off, so nobody knows.
Nope, no one knows.
And so
and then you've got tears and people are crying, and it's
exactly.
a mess.
I did see one the other day where they had the gender reveal. And then the mother-in-law really took over, and it was supposed to be all about mom.
Oh no!
And his mom takes over,
no.
And of course this is all on social media, which is where I saw it,
Yep, of course.
because it's an event on social media, so someone had to have been doing that. And then the comments, oh my gosh, I think it was like TikTok or something. I don't know. The comments on this were just crazy.
Yeah.
And so, I'm there for the comments and the popcorn and,
right,
things like that
Sitting
when
back
when I'm watching all of this. So it's been kind of an interesting.
I would say it's one of those fads and trends that on its way out.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Hi everyone, I'm Cassidy, the second C in CMC Financial. So Dad sometimes gets on a roll with this podcast and might forget to remind you about a few things. 1, don't forget to like and share this podcast and leave a review. 2, follow CMC Financial on all of the socials, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And 3, go check out the website at cmcfp.com. Okay, back to my dad. He's probably still talking.
So we've talked about milestone anniversaries, milestone birthdays, baby showers. Let's jump to a handful of other types of events. So, Jennifer and I always host a holiday party every year. It's something that we do in our home. We don't go to a venue. We don't really have a lot of vendors. It's one of the things that she kind of puts together. Are you seeing that more, or is it more where people are saying, okay, we're going to go to this event at this club, or we're going to go to this event at this venue that they're hosting? What is the trend around the holidays?
Yeah, so I would say more family style. People host Christmas parties in their home, but like you said, they're not having all the vendors. It's really intimate. They're close friends, they're close families. They might cater it. You might have an outside caterer, or you might just do it yourself. It's very simple, not over the top. But I do see a lot of the clubs and things like that where you're having these big Christmas parties and people are planning to attend them. And so that seems to be a super fun trend around the holidays. And we all know that corporate is crazy busy around the holidays. That's really the time where corporate kicks up.
So it's more of the company Christmas party
right.
or the company holiday party.
That's right.
And then I'm also seeing a lot of New Year's Eve type
Those
things
are also
that
really
pop
big.
up. Okay.
Yes.
But this isn't something that I would normally have to kind of budget for or plan for.
No,
things
I
like
wouldn't
that.
say. It's not something that I've seen become a huge trend.
Okay.
No.
Okay. One thing that I have, and I've had and I literally just thought of this. I've had a lot of clients as they're talking about their financial plan. We're talking about budget items and things that we do budget for. This because we're in the spring or the beginning of the year, trending into spring. This seems to be the time of year where there's a lot of charity events.
Yeah.
Which I as an individual, I'm not having to go plan that, but I am participating in that. And I know that you in your previous world, you've done a lot of these type of events where a charity will hire an event planner to put on this event. It's a charitable event, and then individuals come or they get a table or things like that.
Yep.
As an individual, and again, the whole podcast is geared around financial planning, budgeting, gearing towards specific goals, things like that. Is that something that you're seeing a trend where there's more and more and more of?
As far as these fundraising events,
It's the
yes,
fundraising events
yes.
that if I'm philanthropic and I want to participate,
Yep.
it's not inexpensive to be able
That's
to
right.
participate.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
it's something that you might have to sort of plan, maybe not as a separate goal,
Right.
but at least as a budgetary item
That's right.
in your financial
Absolutely.
budget.
Because most families, I would say, that are participating in nonprofits, in fundraising, in a specific donation bucket, I would say. If you have an organization that means so much to you, and I know that you guys do,
We do.
you're going to set out a point to donate throughout the year, or you might do one large donation a year. You might attend events that are held. So yes, absolutely. This is a very big, important piece of the puzzle, I would say. And also from an event perspective too, it matters because you guys are the ones like really, kind of perpetuating this year after year after year. So yes,
Right.
I think it's very important that it's planned for.
Well, and so I'm on a handful of nonprofits that I'm a board member for, and we have these events, and so we always talk about, well, we have to create an event that people come to that they enjoy, that they want to come back to, because you don't want someone to just come one time and then not come back again and again and again.
Yeah.
So are these CMC, we sponsor 3 different organizations throughout the year, and so I know we're a lot of our people with our firm, and then also we're inviting some clients. We have an event coming up in March, and so we purchased a table, and so that experience is going to be, we come, there's going to be a silent auction, there's going to be dinner, there's going to be the gaming option at the end where you get X number of dollars of fake money, and then you go gamble like you're in Vegas, but it's not costing you anything.
That's right. Feels great.
Exactly.
Spend somebody else's money.
This is where I'm at the craps table going, I really don't understand this, but this looks like a lot of fun.
And then you hit big because it's fake money.
Exactly.
Right?
And then I'm like, oh, I can do
That's
this.
right.
I can go to Vegas and do this.
That's right.
Totally.
It's easy.
Yeah. So that event. Are you seeing more and more of that? And are these organizations having to make their event more grandiose so that as they're competing with these other nonprofits, you're wanting to come to theirs?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes.
You hit the nail on the head. Everyone, I wouldn't say that everyone is consciously trying to one up the other event, but like you said, you want to make it worthwhile. And I think especially things shifted a bit during COVID. So we're seeing a little bit of 2 different things, right? We came out of COVID, everyone was so isolated. And so now people are really appreciating the relationship of getting together and the fun and all of that. So there's one side of it that events have really, we are through the roof on events. But then the other side of it is that people know that they can sit at home and have their own drink delivered. And so why would I go out and spend a Friday night or whatever it is when I can do this at home? So is it worth my while to get dressed up, get out, spend money, and go to this event? So there's kind of this polarizing push and pull of how we're looking at approaching planning events now, right? And so I think it's now you're looking at getting more sponsorship dollars. You are getting more interactives. What does that look like? What's going to keep people engaged? Because that attention span is this big.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's still all about creating experiences.
Yes.
Okay.
All of
So
it.
so if I'm a small business owner, which I am, and part of my financial plan as an individual is my business. So if I own an S corporation, or I own a part of a partnership, or I'm an LLC or something like that, part of my personal financial plan may be philanthropic things that I want to be able to do. So this is totally dovetailing into that and being able to participate in these types of things. So what you're saying is if I'm going to sit at home and have DoorDash delivered and watch a movie, or am I and stroke a check to the organization?
That's right.
Versus getting dressed up, going out to the event, participating in the event, and I'm still contributing the same amount of money.
Right.
You're saying they've got to entice me to want to be able to do that.
What makes it worth, just because anyone can have, a rubber chicken dinner kind of thing. What is going to make it worth people's time, effort, energy, money? Because I think people are now realizing that time is money.
Right.
So like you said, I can write a check and still stay home.
Right.
So why do they want to go out?
Right.
What are we doing that's special? What are we doing that's hosting them? Because they are the ones that are funding this incredible organization.
Mm-hmm. And what are you seeing? What are people, what are not events, but what are nonprofits doing to entice people to come?
And I think this is not even just nonprofit. I think corporate in general, I like to call them interactives.
Okay.
So if I am hosting an event, and I've had the absolute pleasure of traveling the world with groups and having these really cool experiences from a corporate perspective. But what is that local? If I'm in Miami and there's a local cigar roller who wants to come and roll a cigar and maybe show everyone what this experience is like, and that at the end you might get a takeaway. Or if I'm in Colorado and I have a vendor that does custom hats, and they might be able to brand it with the company name or the logo or whatever that looks like. But oh my gosh, I got to participate in this and take something home.
Okay.
How cool is that?
Okay.
So it's trying to see what is going to be an experience that no one else has ever done, that I can say, we did that at this event.
Right. And if I'm a small business owner and I'm trying to, or if I'm planning, say, a client event for my clients, as a small business owner, I'm having to create an experience to where they're going to want to come, that they want to enjoy, that they can get more information and more enjoyment than listening to my podcast or watching something on an Instagram reel.
Right.
Are we going to learn anything? Are we going to experience things more? So it's kind of an interesting dichotomy of where things are. All right, so let's say let's jump to one that will happen at some point in my career, maybe, and that's retirement party.
I don't think you'll ever retire.
Probably not. You know me too well. What are we seeing in retirement parties? Are they as big a deal as they used to be?
I would probably say no.
Okay.
We're seeing more where you might have a really lovely dinner and you invite, a handful of your closest people. I wouldn't say it's kind of the huge, what you picture, what is that retirement song? He's a jolly good fellow, remember like those big parties. I wouldn't say that, but I would say it's still honorable. It's still a milestone, but I wouldn't say that they are as big as they probably used to be.
So it's maybe more family and close friends.
That's right.
And a couple of clients.
Yeah. You might have a private space at a really nice restaurant and, you've still got the beautiful food and drinks and all of that, but I don't think they're as big as they used to be.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, let me kind of tie all this back up. And these last couple of episodes, really what we've tried to do, I always talk about experiences. And when when you're saving for a goal, and this jumps back to cash flow, it could be with the insurance, it could be with, we got a tax implication, it could be for retirement. When you're saving for a goal, it's not just about saving for the goal, it's the why behind it. Yeah. So if I'm putting X number of dollars away into an account or an allocation or a bucket of money for a milestone, or to be able to have money set aside so that I as an S corporation can contribute to a nonprofit, those are all things that we save for. It's not just about a dollar amount. It's a why am I doing this? What type of experience am I going to get out of this? Yeah. And I think there's been a tremendous evolution of what those experiences look like, because we were talking about on the corporate side, if you've done it once or twice or 3 times or 4 times, do you want to go back and do it a 5th? Right. Do you want to go back and do it a 10th?
Right.
It's kind of like a wedding reception. Right. They're all sort of the same.
Yeah.
That's why I get so excited about a mashed potato bar.
Right.
Because they're new.
Yeah.
It's kind of a new trend. And I'm like, okay, I can get behind
That's
that,
right.
you know,
Yes.
and or the macaroni and cheese thing,
Yeah.
or it's not all about the the cutting of the cake
Right.
and things like that. I mean,
Right.
those are still important aspects
Yes. Yes.
that you have to do. Is that fair? Is that a fair way to say, as an event planner, you're having to think out of the box and think? Now, we may not go. You mentioned. And I think it was in the last episode, the girl that wanted the color, the
Yeah.
colors and the fun, as she's running
Yes.
down. We may not want to go to that extreme.
Right.
And if you haven't heard that story, please go back and listen to it on the last episode, because it was an interesting story.
Yes.
But we may not go to that extreme, but we want to try to think out of the box, because if I'm saving for that goal,
Yes.
it's the why am I saving for that goal? What
Yes.
am I going to get out of it? If I'm seeing the smile on my daughter's face
Absolutely.
as X is happening,
Yes.
or as she's seeing those social media posts, as her friends are commenting on that, I'm looking back going, okay, that was money well saved, because it created an experience for my daughter.
Absolutely. We're looking at the ROI.
Yes.
Whether that's a corporate data, what is the ROI? Or like you just said, the smile on her face. That is your ROI.
That is the ROI.
That is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay. I asked you this question in the last episode, and it's, what's the most unusual request you've ever seen non-wedding? And this could be corporate, this could be a milestone, this could be whatever.
Oh gosh, Jim, you put me on the spot.
I you knew I was going to. So.
Okay. Well, I'm not very good at being on the spot. So maybe I'll pivot and not answer this question, because I don't know. But
Okay.
I will say one of the coolest events that I've
Okay,
ever
let's do that.
been able to do was for Google.
Okay.
So, obviously massive empire of a company, being able to work with someone like that and really seeing all the branding come to life and all of the cool details, and just really, really cool to say that I've been able to work with Google.
That's
Yes.
cool.
Yes.
That's cool.
It was a really cool kind of like check the box,
Right.
that kind of thing.
Well,
Yeah.
and I know RFG is amazing to work with. We're not quite at Google level,
We're getting there.
but we're getting
We're
there.
getting there.
We're
Yes.
getting there.
Yes.
So it's going to be a lot of fun.
And we have really cool swag.
We
So,
do.
we
We
do.
do. You mentioned swag.
Yeah.
You mentioned a takeaway, a leave behind. Final question: are you seeing, whether it's wedding or one of these milestone events, are you seeing takeaways or leave behinds or things that become memorable?
Yes.
What types of
Yes.
things are you seeing?
So for weddings, you're looking at something that is a token towards the couple,
Okay.
right? It could be matchboxes. It could be, we're seeing a lot of those Polaroid cameras where people are doing the spit out Polaroid, and, that's kind of a trend that's come back, which is really fun. And so you're taking that away. And for corporate, it could be, again, a very personal experience of wherever the location is happening. It could be a branded mug. It could be a branded wine glass or a Yeti cup or something like that. So yeah, we're seeing lots and lots of that.
You're seeing lots of that sort
Absolutely.
of thing. Okay. And again, if I'm owning the company and we're doing this, those are budget items. Those are things that I have to be
100%.
thinking about.
Yes.
If I'm an individual and I'm
Yes.
talking about the budget for my daughter's wedding,
Yes.
those are things that are
Yep.
that are incorporated in there.
That is the
Yeah.
marketing side of the event.
So there's a marketing side of the event.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably evolved and changed over the years.
I'm sure.
Any final thoughts on?
I just think it's important, not only from a budgetary standpoint, but also from an investment standpoint. Like you mentioned, what is the why? Events are so scientifically proven to bring people together. It's all about relationships. It's all about building your business or building a relationship within that. And so I think if people dug in a little bit deeper to understanding the why of why events work, then they might be a little bit more prone to invest and maybe spend a little bit more money or plan ahead on what that looks like.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah.
Great advice.
Yeah.
So, Amanda, if someone wanted to contact you as an event planner, how would they do that?
They can give me a call. My number is 205-919-5859, or shoot me an email. It is ARRAH, ARRAH, planninganddesign@gmail.com.
Okay, awesome. And RJ for CMC Financial, that's cmcfp.com. My number is 205-510-9074. We are on all the socials. We talked about that. I'm trying to embrace the marketing side of this. So socials for LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. We have our YouTube channel. And this has been a fun 2-part series. I've enjoyed talking all things events, how it affects your financial plan, and being able to budget for that. But most importantly, the why behind it.
Absolutely.
And RJ, that's all we've got.
Excellent. Just a lot of great information there, Amanda, and it was enjoyable to listen to on my end.
Yay!
Most importantly, thank you for listening to the Financial Puzzle Playbook podcast. We ask you to share this podcast, rate it, and leave a review because this actually helps others find the show. Again, thank you for listening, and for everyone at Financial Puzzle Playbook, I'm RJ Malik, and we'll see you at the next podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Financial Puzzle Playbook. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Don't forget to follow us on social media by checking the links in the description. And contact us today by visiting our website at www.cmcfp.com or give us a call at 205-510-9074. Content here is for illustrative purposes and general information only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized financial advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security, or engage in any specific trading strategy. Results will vary. Past performance is no indication of future results or success. Market conditions change continuously. This commentary reflects the personal opinions, viewpoints, and analyses of CMC Financial. It does not necessarily represent those of RFG Advisory, Private Client Services, their clients, or their employees. This commentary should not be regarded as a description of advisory services provided by CMC Financial or RFG Advisory, or performance returns of any client. The views reflected in the commentary are subject to change at any time without notice. Securities offered by registered representatives of Private Client Services, member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered by investment advisory representatives of RFG Advisory, a registered investment advisor. Private Client Services, CMC Financial, and RFG Advisory are unaffiliated entities. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where RFG Advisory and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advisory services may be rendered by RFG Advisory unless a client agreement is in place.